guys, and welcome to Talk of Fame podcast. I'm your host, Kyliemontigney, and this week is going to be amazing. I have a lot going on, but I'm so happy to do this interview with Laura Haver, who's a play advocate, author, life coach, speaker, athlete, mom, and beach lover. She's obsessed with learning how to craft the best life amid circumstances for her family, her clients, her readers, and herself. And she writes, speaks, and coaches all about the fun and craziness that accompanies life, being part of family, being full of dreams and ideas, and moving from that feeling shut down to showing up as yourself so you can live an authentic and vibrant life. And I'm so excited to learn more about her book. It's so amazing, and how to come up with the ideas on how to craft the best mindset. And like, Laura, how are you today?
Good, thanks. Good to see you. Hi,
Me
everybody.
too. And like, did you see like any like change when you started creating the best life mindset of your clients or yourself?
Definitely. What's really interesting, having grown up doing athletics, is I've always had a coach or been a coach, right? In terms of
Mhm.
sports, I played tennis growing up. And when you're getting into your life, sometimes it's, when you're dealing with all the things that you have going on, having someone else to talk to who might have a greater picture or another understanding is super useful. So I've always loved being able to have a coach, and then now to, in being a coach for other people. And what's so interesting is that life is so busy. I'm sure you guys understand, right? You were just
Mhm.
saying like how I was so busy, and you get started and you're going through your day and things just sort of happen. And that's what I love so much about life coaching and life design, is being intentional, thinking about what's important to you. What do you want to put into your time? Otherwise, our time just fills up completely. And so working with clients, it's really fun to help them slow down, see the bigger picture, choose what they want to focus on. And oftentimes, what people think they want to focus on to make them quote unquote happy isn't always the thing that will actually give them that feeling of fulfillment, right? Because like
Mhm.
happiness is just something that comes and goes, but like this feeling of fulfillment or this like flourishing life, that stuff starts to happen when you start to take this intentional look at your life. And it looks different for everybody because everybody crafts their life so differently, and what they like and what's important to them and where they live and what stage of life they're in.
Right? And like, when people like are going through life, whether you're a teenager, a kid, or adult, like, you basically forget about anything else. Like, you're working day to day, all day. You're like, what's outside of life that I can do besides work? Like, because like a lot of people is basically sometimes wrapped up in their work that they're like, what am I gonna do with my time now that I don't have any work to do or anything? What am I supposed to do? Like, because a lot of people were like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Especially during the pandemic, like basically with everything shutting down, they're like, what? Like, everybody's like, the pandemic was supposed to last 2 weeks, and now it's like 3 years later. You're like, what are we supposed to do when we're supposed to be at our homes every single day, all day long? You can't do nothing.
I
And so
know.
that's when people kind of realize that, like, okay, well, I need to figure out something to do since I'm basically not in school and work.
Yeah, well, that's funny that you mentioned that, because during that time, I was just really feeling for all the families, specifically because I have two kids. I have now they're 8 and 11, but this was what, they were a couple, 3 years younger at that point. And I was like, what? I just felt for families. They're all stuck at home. They're all like, in this confined space together. And that's when I started creating with my boys these games each day, which ultimately turned into my book. And it was really cool when I look back at it now, because it gave us something to do
Mm-hmm.
together each day. And I think what, to your point, Kylie, is that, we just get caught up in whatever we're doing. And
Mm-hmm.
when you can stop and say, okay, well, what do I want to put in? So everyone listening, think about what your day looks like and what your week looks like. And are you more on the like robot side, right? Like, are you just going through the motions, or is there something missing, or is there something like calling to you? Like, sometimes you might be like scrolling on your social media and maybe you see your friends like doing something and you're like, ooh, you might be like, ooh, that looks fun. Or you might even be like, oh, why do they get to do that? And that could be a hint that you
Yeah.
might want to do that, right? And so looking for these little sparks of things that bring you joy, that are not tied to any achievement or anything like that, that are just for the pure play, for the pure fun. Because I think, and especially in the United States where we are, it's just so driven, and
Yeah.
you can just keep achieving. And studies show, across the board that just getting more money and getting more achievements, that's not necessarily going to make for a fulfilled life. So it's like, putting in both sides of the, making sure you attune to your own fun and to your own spirit and showing up as yourself.
You're so right. And like, how can you cultivate reconnect with play in your life for both yourself, your family, your relationships?
Yeah, well, starting to pay attention is the first thing. We kind of touched on that already a little bit, like noticing what thoughts maybe keep coming to you, or like these little like whisperings on your heart, and also I want to point out too, like for you and I, like some of the stuff that we do for play, like you hosting this podcast and me writing this book, those things can be play. It could just be like quilting, or I don't know, I'm trying to think of like more like, examples just for yourself, like making jewelry, or, there's just all sorts of different things. And for anyone listening who's like, dang, I really don't know what I like to do for fun anymore, you can reach out to me, and I have a free playlist planner, which helps people remember what they used to like to do for fun, and then helps them plan it into their life now. Because I
Ooh,
think that's another piece, is like we forget that you actually have to plan it. If we're like, well, I'll get to it, but then it's like if you're always busy, you won't get to it, right? Because
yeah.
we think that it does not really matter that much, but it really does. So when you operate from fun and play, there's health benefits, there's mental health benefits, there's relationship can like you there's so many boosts, boosts in creativity and innovation. And so it's just, we just don't think about that because we've been kind of programmed to think we need to work and we need to do, but when we do these other pieces, it really helps to elevate the other areas of our life, so that when we do go to work, or we are with our family or we're with our friends, we're like energized and we have this buzz. Like I'm sure you've been around people that are like doing fun things, and you're like, "Ooh, I want to go hang out with that person because they're, like they're alive, they're feeling it."
Like that is so true because when you are basically working all the time and you see on social media or see people out or at a restaurant or your neighborhood, they're like skateboarding, hanging out with friends, I don't know, like partying or whatever it is. You're like, okay, I want to do that too. Like, why not? But it's like you sometimes you just get wrapped up in your work. They're like you never have any fun, and you just like sometimes work cannot be your entire life. Like for me, like I'm like working all the time that I barely have time to do anything. And then at 16 years old, and like I should be like living out my summer, but most of the time I'm basically just working. But it's like at the same time, I'm going out and having fun with my friends, and at the time, I'm like, I have to do so much work. It's so insane. So it's like there's pros and cons to both of that, but it's like you need to realize how to balance both of them at the same time to make sure you have fun and actually getting work done.
Right, right. Because if you're only going to be working, you're going to burn out. And you
Hmm.
don't want that. You don't want that because everything would suffer in that instance, right? So the cool thing too about fun is you don't need so much, right? Like the more the merrier, right? Obviously, to some point, you have to be responsible as well. But for anyone listening who's young, it's like you want to enjoy your life as well. Like everyone deserves to enjoy their life now to the best of their ability, and it doesn't really matter. Like the thing that's so interesting about it is that your life circumstance only accounts for a certain percent, but then like how you approach it has a big sorry, you have an ability to open it up and expand it. So it's like you're not set with your genetic disposition, like how happy or unhappy you are. You're not set with your life circumstances, but it's your approach to it. And so that's why I love being this play advocate role, so I can share that with people, because I feel like everywhere most people say like do this, do that. And I've had a lot of these achievements, and you get them and you're like, that's great. And then it's like, okay, now what? So it's like this funny quote that I used to love when I was in high school is, um, success is the journey, not the destination. It's like trying to get your first book out. Oh my God, when I get my book, it just like enjoy the process. So like whatever it is that you're working on, that's what it's going to be like once you get it. And so just enjoying it, right? Cultivating relationships. If the relationships are one of the most the best thing for overall life quality. And you don't need a lot of amazing relationships, but just like having a close relationship and someone to say, hey, guess what? I just, I created this organization and now I'm supporting all these women and girls, and like someone that you created, and then who do you share it with? Who do you celebrate with? And
You
like,
should have that one person, like whether it's like family or friends. You're like, look, I did this. I'm so happy for myself. Like, just have that one person to celebrate with is actually this amazing. You don't need to have a million friends to celebrate with. You should have that one or two friends actually be like, okay, well, look what I did. Like, this is amazing.
yeah, yeah. And just taking off some of the pressure on yourselves, like for anyone listening who's like, oh, I gotta do this and I gotta do that. It's like, sure, but also like think about it in the bigger picture, right? Like think about your life in the future. When you look back, what will you feel like? When I was finishing college tennis, I played, we were a really good team, top in the country, and it was a lot of pressure. And I look back on it now and I'm like, that was just so fun. Why did I have to feel so much pressure? And so I try to take that into the new stages of my life and be like, okay, what will I think about this 10 years from now? And how can I like live into that, And so that's where I think one of my favorite tools is meditation, for
Hmm.
calming yourself, getting centered. And I share that and I teach that to everyone, including my kids. And it's just like, I mean, that's the best, one of the best tools out there.
Yeah, because like sometimes like when you're just wrapped in the moment, you're like you're like always in like going this crazy space, and years later you're thinking like, why did I go crazy over that moment? Like,
Mhm.
why did I take it kind of not for granted, but like go crazy over that moment?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's
And
signs of growth, It's like showing
yeah,
yourself, okay, I used to do that, and like looking for like evidence that you are doing a good job, and like you can trust yourself. You can trust yourself to, come back up from difficult times.
yeah. And like, what are the like pros and cons to like reconnecting your life?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of pros, I would say, in terms of, being actively creating your life rather than just letting it all fall off. So you get to be more present. You get to know that you spent your time on things that are important to you versus like the things that are just coming at you at life. And you get to experience richer connections with the people in your life, or you get to create them. You get to meet new people or take different experiences that come to you. And it's really fun because when you're going through your life, you think, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And the fun thing is you never know where your life is going to take you. And so if you stop and reflect, what do I want to create? Well, how can I be intentional? What do I want my experience to be like? And when I say that, I don't mean like, I want to make this much money, I want to have this. It's not like in terms of things, but it's like, how do I want to feel? Like, I want to feel peaceful. I want to feel connected. I want to feel like I'm making a difference, So I would encourage anyone that's like, what would I want it to be like? Like, think in terms of how you're being in your life versus what you have. Because, you might get it, but then it's more important, like how you are being your experience at the moment. If that's clear?
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Is that like sometimes like when you're wrapped up in the moment, you're like, what am I supposed to do outside this moment? But
Mhm.
sometimes like a lot of people, especially in 2023, want to make always want to focus on the specific thing, whether it's like money or getting amount of hours or getting this amount of work done and comparing or whatever it is that you're overthinking or have your mind on. It's that like things do happen for a reason. I know a lot of people hear that are like, okay, well, things do and don't happen for a reason. But
Yeah.
that's like it does things do happen for a reason. But then it's like when you have those moments, it just makes you want to grow your craft even more. Even though you do not want to stress yourself, because trust me, I've been there and it's so stressful. And like from my experience, it does get a little overwhelming if you don't get this many hours or working a lot of things, and people are getting more publishing and more things than you. Like it's just it can be very overwhelming, but it's like at the same time you're like, okay, if I see this person doing things, I'm happy for them at the same time. But then you're like, okay, I kind of want that too, so I'm gonna work even harder than I do to get that thing too.
Yeah. And just, I think one thing that people often realize too, by clients and when people start to think about it is giving yourself more credit for what you already are. instead of being like, a lot of times we're like, oh, I need this and I need that and whatever. And so it's like, oh, wait a minute, I am doing this. And I like taking time, like we're so busy getting the things, but then once we get it, it's like celebrating the little moments and like appreciating, wow, last year at that time I would have been upset that. And now I can take that with a little bit of peace, or, like noticing and celebrating what we're doing well, and what we,
Mhm.
like how we are living into what we want to be now.
Mm-hmm. And like your book, Play Together, Games and Activities for the Whole Family Boost Creativity, Connection, and Mindfulness, which is actually right behind you. And like,
Yeah.
it's a go-to guide for family fun. What are some games and activities you bring for families in the book?
So there's tons of different activities. They range in all different, there's 5 different categories. There's mindfulness games, which I really like because they make learning mindfulness skills fun for families and for kids specifically. There's movement, kindness, creativity, and connection. And there's all different range, but one of my favorite games, we played every day for years now. I call it Gratitude Detectives. And it's where each night, we do it at bedtime, we each say 3 new things that we're grateful for. And that's why I call it detectives. And I think it makes it sound more fun for kids, right? Because research has shown that, having gratitude is really great. But when you are actively looking for new things to be grateful for, that is really magic, because that's when you start to scan the world for new things. If you just say every night, like every day, like basically still my son will always say, what are you grateful for? You, dad, and his brother, right? So every night he says that and we laugh. And then I say, okay, but give me 3 new things. And then that way you're just like pushing yourself to think bigger. And especially the moments when you're having a bad day and you're like, I'm not grateful for anything, this day stinks. Like that day is even the best day to do it, because at that day you have to dig deep and be like, okay, I'm grateful for like having sheets on my bed, or like you have to go to these things that you might not otherwise think about, so you can get the depth of which it is. So there's games like that. There's other funny games, like there's this game, photography scavenger hunt, where you go around outside and you take pictures. Like you can try to find your name. So like you would look for all the letters of your name out in nature, and then you
Ooh.
would just like take a picture and then you could put it together. And there's all sorts of creativity games and games together, just tons of stuff to play. And we just basically made up a new game every day during the early years of the pandemic, and it was really fun. We got to partner with people all around the US and actually around the world. I partnered with this amazing artist in Portugal, and we did this eco printing, which you guys might like. It's actually really fun. You can take flowers from outside or from even tea, like whatever. You can get flowers and you steam them and you can put them onto paper. And so you basically print the flowers on a journal, and then you can make
Ooh.
art over it. And, just all this sort of a mixture of different games and activities. And they mostly are all based on research. I'm sort of a research nerd. I love looking up all the studies and finding fun ways to incorporate it for families.
That is so cool. Like to work with a lot of people, not just in the US, but over the world is so crazy. And like when I was working, actually, there were like these like people from the UK, Australia, like we're literally like they were part of a camp that came down to Pennsylvania where I live. It's like an hour away from where I live at this campus base. And basically they came to my work, I guess like for as a field trip or something. And then one of the counselors, a couple of the counselors came up to us and was like was telling us how like these the camp is a camp for kids, and that a lot of the counselors are from Australia, United Kingdom, Australia. It's insane. And it's when we were talking to all these things and learning more about them, like it's like you get to hear all these insane accents. Like the accents are so cool. It's just like elite, like it's like at that moment you're like, oh, I don't care about the America voices anymore. I can just learn more about the Australian culture and South Africa culture. You get to learn all these cultures. That's why I love it. Is that like when you like meet people from a different country, as like Australia or United Kingdom or whatever, like you get to hear their accents and they're more their culture because if you're from the United States, a lot of people are like wrapped up in our culture that they don't really get to know other cultures as well. And so that was like the best part is that like when you meet people from a different country, you're like, this is perfect. I know I mean I'm basically the biggest person in the UK. So I'm like, and when he was like asking questions, I was basically naming every single one and getting all of them right because I love the UK. So I'm like, I was like, soccer, did like I was literally naming everything. So it's like when you meet those type of people from a different country and learn more about that backgrounds and their country, it's not like it just awakens your eyes a little bit to learn more about their country, not just the United States.
Yeah, it's a great thing about travel. And if you don't have the opportunity to go overseas and meet people, because it's so interesting learning. Like I went and I lived in Australia for 2 years and I did my master's of international communication, which was
Ooh.
amazing because my program had people from all over the world in my program. And so it's so fun to learn about what's the same and what's different and what we can learn, like you said, from other cultures that might not be normal here, but we might be like, oh, I really like that and I want to do that. And like I know other countries, they don't put so much emphasis on the work, so they have more balance in their life. And it's just really interesting. But even if you don't have the opportunity to go overseas, like you said, we have such an amazing access to information now, right? Reading through books and through podcasts. And so it's just fun if that's something that you're interested in. It's just amazing. I love that you're so fired up about that. And there's so much to learn from,
Yeah, and like,
from
'cause
getting
I know like a
connected to
lot of
other
people are
world.
sometimes wrapped up in our own culture that like you don't really get to learn about other people's cultures at the same time,
Yeah.
which was pretty cool. I'm just so happy with the technology we have now is that like if we have podcasting or articles or whatever it is like news stations we have, like when we watch those things, like you get international news. So not just in the United States, but maybe in the UK, Australia, or whatever, you get to learn all these things. And I'm so happy like we have all these things. I know like, our parents probably didn't have all these things growing up. Is that like when we listen to these podcasts or whatever, you hear these accents and our cultures like, and it makes you just be like, okay, I'm going to save that much money to go to visit, let me
Mm-hmm.
say, New Zealand, for example, you know? So it just make you learn more of the culture. And like, okay, I'm going to go to that place when I had enough money to go to that place.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And like, how do you like decide like the activities for the book?
Basically, in that case, we just woke up each day. At that point, I didn't know that it was going to be a book, and we were just posting it as this challenge to my social media. So we would just wake up and we would pick something that we wanted to do, and we just sort of got into the rhythm of it. So it was fun. Like one day we woke up and my oldest son started drawing cards, and he was making it for his nephew, and he started putting like hidden pictures. I don't know if you remember those books when
Mm-hmm.
you were a kid. So he made like a little card with hidden pictures, and suddenly I'm like, oh, that would be a fun game for the book. And another day we were just sitting on the couch hanging out, and we get a doorbell ring, and one of our friends had did this ding dong ditch art where basically because this was at the height of the pandemic when you couldn't see people, right? So he drew a picture and he left it on our front porch and he ran away. And so we're like, that's a really fun game. So some games would just sort of happen, and then other games we'd say, oh, we could play this game. And then I also would meet people and say, like the artist I was talking about, and different people, and I'd say, oh, we can do this catching bugs game, or there's just they just sort of all happened organically.
That like I feel like the pandemic like taught us things that you never would have known like before the pandemic because that's when like time was slowing down and I feel like it made our families kind of closer together during that time.
Yeah, and now that we're, a couple years outside of the initial, it's just remembering, what did we learn? What did we notice for ourselves? How can we use those lessons now instead of just getting back into all the busyness? Like I notice the busyness starting to come back up and say, okay, how can I be intentional about this? How can I slow it down? Or what do I need to really incorporate what I learned during that time?
And like, do you think like communication is key for families and why?
I mean, I think communication is sort of key for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I'm biased because that's what I studied, but that's how we connect, right? So if relationships are crucial for us in terms of survival, and we need to be able to speak well with each other, and so I think really understanding the other person's point of view, really speaking and listening. We don't always have to agree with what the other person says, but we have to listen to what they say and then get it. And then if we have advice or if we have thoughts for them, like asking permission, hey, are you open to some thoughts about this right now? Or you just want me to listen? Because sometimes people just want you to listen, or I just want someone to listen, right? Sometimes you might be like, this is a hard day, da da da, and you don't want someone to try to fix it for you. But other days you're like, please help me, right? And so I think it's like a really good thing that I've learned from coaching is, asking, are you open to this? Or, and then once they say yes, you could say, you probably tried this already, or you probably considered this already. That way, if they have or haven't, it makes them feel good. Like they're more open to receiving your message.
Yeah, basically, if you just like blurt out these dots, they're like, "What are you doing? I don't think I asked for that." Like, they
Yeah.
sometimes like you just like all they know want to know is you to listen, not just like pretending your thoughts. Like that's so important. Like what you said is like asking, like, "Are you open to some thoughts I have in mind?" But sometimes you're like, they're like, "Oh no, I just want you to listen." You're like, "Okay, that's all I need." Like it depends, like how people are in that moment.
Yeah, then you can feel good about it. You want people, if they're important to you, you want them to be able to feel comfortable coming to you, right? So you
Mhm.
want them to be like, you're a safe space and you'll listen and you'll honor them in the moment.
And
I
like
think
you
being
are,
honest with yourself is important too, because sometimes
yeah.
you do things and you don't realize why, and then you dig deeper, and that's where having a good friend can really help, because they could say, "Oh, I noticed this," because sometimes it's harder to see it for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And like you are a Big Ten college tennis champion and a two-time national beach tennis champion. And like, what is like the difference between college and beach tennis?
Yeah, so beach tennis is a completely different sport. It's similar to tennis in that it's well, I played pro beach tennis over two different times. The first time we used tennis rackets, and then the second time it merged with the International Tennis Federation for the worldwide, where they use paddles, sort of similar to pickleball paddles. But beach tennis is kind of, imagine a beach volleyball court, and then the net is just a little bit lower. So it's no bounce doubles, and I couldn't, like, if we were playing doubles together, I couldn't like pass it to you and then you hit it over. It's just like, well, it's like pickleball, I guess. One, it's doubles, no bounce.
Mm.
Yeah,
That's so interesting because I never knew beach tennis was a thing
I
until
know.
like I was just doing some research and I was like, beach tennis is a thing? Like, I knew beach volleyball was a thing, but I didn't
Yeah.
know beach tennis was a thing.
Beach tennis has not, it's like, even though it's been around in the United States since probably like 2007 or 2008, it just hasn't really picked up huge speed. Like when I first started playing in 2008, I think, or whatever, 2007, 2008, pickleball didn't even exist, right?
Yeah.
And so, some sports just really take off big and others take off not as big, but around the world, it's huge. Like in Italy and Brazil, it's very big. Like everyone plays, and, all the beaches are lined with tons of beach tennis courts. And, it's just, for me, having been a tennis player and now living in San Diego at the beach, it's just like it was a natural progression. So it's fun too, because in tennis, it's like more quiet, more subdued, and beach tennis, there's like loud music playing, and it's more of like a fun environment.
Yeah. And like, what was it like to win like the Big Ten College Tennis Championship?
It was great. We won the Big Ten regular season, and so it wasn't like the tournament where everyone wins and like runs in, but it was really cool because we were just so proud of ourselves for doing it over the whole course of the season. It takes a lot as a college athlete because you're doing all your studies, you're doing all that, you're training so hard, and it's just working together as a team, and you put so much effort into it and so much time, and just working together and being able to celebrate that, and it was really fun. I'm still really close with all my old teammates. In fact, we still get together, and it's all about the relationships. Looking
Mm-hmm.
back, you can see it's the relationships.
Yeah, you're right. It's like no more like it's amazing how like sports and everything can bring you clo amazing friendships for basically a rest of your life. Like when
Mm.
you talk to those players that you talked to a couple years ago, like you're like, this is the best part. Like I don't care about like sometimes the game. I only care about the friendships. These friendships are more important to the game and having a good relationship with your team.
Yeah, and like and showing yourself that you can do it. It's another good thing about sports. You're like, I can push myself and I can grow and I can accept defeat. Is another really big lesson.
And like the last thing I have for you is like, what is some advice for tennis players or how you can build your communication skills in games?
Sure. Well, for tennis players and really for all athletes, I would say to, just enjoy what you're doing. Have fun. The more you err on the side of play versus the pressure and the competition, the more freely you can play. You can compete and perform really, and to really work on your mental game. Your mental game is so important. I think that meditation was really big. I didn't have that back when I was competing. I mean, we had like a sports psychologist, so possibly we were doing things like that, but like practicing on and off the court, because your mental toughness is something that's going to carry over into all areas of your life. So keeping it fun and light, and finding a good coach to work with, a good bunch of kids to train with, or whatever that looks like for you, and just really trying to stay present and enjoying it in the moment.
I love that. And I want to thank you so much, Laura, for coming on again time. I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. This conversation is definitely one of my favorites for sure. And I want to thank you again for listening and thank you, Laura, for coming on again time. I really appreciate it. And hopefully me and you can do this again soon. I really
Yeah, man.
appreciate it.
Thanks, Kylie, and go get them, everybody. Like, enjoy creating your life and riding the adventure, the ups and the downs. And I'm just excited for it. So anyone, feel free, if you feel stuck, feel free to reach out, and I just appreciate it. So thank you so much, Kylie.
Of course, everyone reach out to her, definitely. I totally recommend it. Have a great rest of your day. Feel free to reach out if you need anything.